Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to demystify what it's really like to write your very first computer program in Java.
And look, by the end of this, you're going to get the basic building blocks you need to create a simple, interactive program. We're going to take you from zero to actually seeing the path forward.
Okay, so here's the game plan. We'll tackle this in 4 simple parts. First, we'll get your toolkit ready. Then, we'll have our first conversation with the computer, teach it how to store some information, and finally, show it how to make a decision.
All right, first things first. Every programmer, and I mean every programmer, needs a couple of essential tools to even get started.
So to get started coding in Java, you really only need 2 things, something called a JDK and another thing called an IDE.
Okay, so what on earth is a JDK? Well, think of it like your own personal translator. It takes the code you write, the stuff that looks kind of like English, and turns it into a language the machine can actually understand and execute.
And the IDE? That's your digital workshop. This is where you'll write, manage, and basically live with all your code. Trust me, it's a massive upgrade from trying to do this in a simple text editor like Notepad.
Okay, so our tools are all set up. Now it's time for the fun part, having our very first conversation with the computer.
So, to kick off any Java program, you need this exact line of code right here. Now, as a beginner, don't worry about what it all means just yet. Just think of it as the magic spell that tells Java, hey, start right here. And yeah, you can totally say args like you're a pirate. I won't tell.
All right, now for the really fun part, making the computer actually say something. This command you see, system.out.println, basically tells the console to print out whatever text you stick inside those quotes. And boom, this is the result. You type in that command, you run the program, and this is what pops up on the screen. See? Pretty straightforward.
But wait a second. A monologue isn't really a conversation, is it? We want the computer to listen, too. For that, we need a special tool. In Java, it's called a scanner. It basically opens up a two-way street, letting your program read whatever the user types in.
And this is how you make it truly interactive. Look at this. With just a couple of lines, you can ask for someone's name, store whatever they type in, and then use that information to say hello right back to them.
Okay, so our program can talk and it can listen. What's next? Well, let's give it a way to actually remember things. And we do this using something called variables. Just like back in algebra class, where x was a placeholder for a number, it's pretty much the same idea in programming. A variable is just a container with a name where you can store info to use later on.
Now, one little catch. Java is kind of picky. It needs to know what kind of information you're storing in those containers. For a beginner, these are the big 4 you need to know. You've got int for whole numbers, double for numbers with a decimal point, string for any kind of text, and boolean for a simple true or false. That's it.
All right, we're building something cool here. We've got tools, we've got conversation, we've even got memory. The final piece of the puzzle for our first day is to teach our program how to think, how to make decisions.
So you might be wondering, how can a program actually make a choice? How do we get our code to react differently depending on the situation? How does it choose which path to take?
Well, we use something called an if-else statement. And honestly, it's super simple. It's just a test. If some condition is true, the program does one thing. Else, if it's false, it does a different thing instead. That's the core of it.
So for example, look at this. We can check a Boolean variable. If that isStudent variable is set to true, it prints one message. If it's not, it prints a completely different one. And just like that, you've introduced logic into your program. This is a huge deal.
So let's just take a step back and look at what we covered. In our whirlwind first day, you learned how to set up your toolkit. You had your first conversation with the computer using println to talk and scanner to listen. You gave it a memory using variables, and you taught it how to make simple decisions with if-else. That's a lot.
And think about this for a second. Every single app on your phone, every piece of software you use, it all started with these exact same building blocks. You now understand the fundamental concepts that are the starting point for everything. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build next?